introduce people.
Okay. So now we are on YouTube. So I think we should start. Okay, we're ready. Okay, so hello everyone. Good afternoon. Oh, some people are joining the session. Let's wait a few more seconds. Okay, so let me check that this is working. Okay, so here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new webinar on water resources and environment here at Universidad de Chile. Today, we have an amazing speaker, but also we have an invited guest. We have a guest here. So I just want to remind to the audience that we have the Zoom session and also the YouTube broadcasting, and you can ask your questions on YouTube and on the Zoom chat, okay? So now I'm going to introduce Miguel Lagos. He's with us, he's a guest today. He's a researcher at Universidad de Chile. So Miguel, can you introduce Natalia?
Yes, thank you, Nicolas. I am very honored to present you Natalia Machado Crespo. She's a scientist from Brazil. She's a meteorologist. She studied at the Universidade Federal de Santa Maria, and she worked in the laboratory of ozone and radiation from the National Institute of Space Research in Brazil. And she developed his master degree contributing to the group of climate studies from the Universidad de Sao Paulo, Brazil. And the main focus of her PhD research was on the dynamical and climatological aspects of cyclones over South America and surrounding. So she also worked as a postdoc researcher at the Western South Atlantic Climate Experiment, getting involved with regional climate modeling, evaluating the current climate and projections of extreme winds and cyclones over Eastern South America under different climate change scenarios. So currently, Natália is in Prague. It's very late, and we really are very grateful for you, Natália. She works as a research scientist in the Department of Atmospheric Physics at Charles University in Prague, mainly working with regional climate modeling in the Eurocortex framework. So Natália, the floor is yours. I'm very honored to present to you, and please go ahead.
So thank you very much, Miguel and Nico, for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen. Just tell me if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Yes? Okay. So again, thank you for the invitation to give this seminar. It's an honor for me and an honor. Miguel, we work together. So he invited me to give a presentation for the department. So thank you. And today I'm going to talk a bit of RegCM4, which is a regional climate model, and regarding to cyclone studies over South America. So as he introduced me, now I'm a research scientist in Charles University in Prague. But I'm going to give you some topics like what I'm going to talk about. So it's just a small introduction. What is a cyclone that I'm talking to you today, and what is their importance around South America, and talking about future climate. So how do we evaluate future climate actually, and how will be these specific systems over South America in the future? And then my last talk and last topic will be like this project that Miguel mentioned that finished last year, which was called Western South Atlantic Climate Experience, that I was part of as a researcher. So just a brief introduction of what cyclones are, okay? So in generally speaking, cyclones are rotating low pressure systems in the atmosphere, and they usually have different denominations, okay? So you can heard of typhoons, hurricanes, extratropical cyclones, even tornadoes, dust devils, and water spots. So all of these, they are considered cyclones. But what is exactly the difference between them? They are different in the size and the lifetime, which we usually call as scale of a system in atmospheric science. They also have different regions of formation and the weather conditions associated with them, like windy, rainfall, cold and warm conditions, and also the formation mechanism. So here in the left side, you can see three figures. So the first one is a tornado. The second one is a dust devil, which is, you can say, like it's similar to a tornado, but in the dust. And the third one is a synoptic cyclone, and specifically one a tropical cyclone, which are only visible through satellite imagery. So this is like imagery from NASA. And this type of cyclones I'm going to talk about here today, okay? So they are commonly called cyclones in the modern meteorology. And they are in these scales here, as you can see in these two plots, okay? So they have a horizontal length scale in the order of 1,000 kilometers, and they also have a deep part in the atmosphere, like they can go to until 10 kilometers height, okay? And they are also in the hydrostatic regime, because if we were talking about tornadoes and dust devils, they have a different dynamics, let's say. And also the time scale. So for instance, a tornado, they are very destructive and they occur like in minutes, half an hour. But cyclones, the cyclones that I'm going to talk about today, they are like more than 2 days long, okay? So these are the cyclones I'm going to talk about today, just to give you an introduction. And where are they? So we have different types of them, okay, in the globe. And we usually call them as extratropical. Here is in Portuguese, but I'm going to show you here. I don't know if you see my mouse here, but you have the extratropical ones, the subtropical and the tropical ones. And for instance, the black arrow shows the extratropical ones. So they mainly occur in mid latitudes. And this reddish band here are the subtropics, which are the regions that the subtropical cyclones occur. And we also have the tropical ones, which is denoted by the white arrows, okay? So this is the main region and general regional formation of these systems. And what about cyclones around South America? So just a brief introduction, we have many different systems, atmospheric systems occurring in South America, as you can see. This is a work from Michele Reboita and others from 2010. And they explore the main atmospheric systems occurring in the region. Some of them occur in the rainy seasons only, okay, and the others in the dry season or the winter. And what I wanted to highlight is that these three red rectangles here, which are the main cyclogenetic regions that we have in the eastern side of South America, okay, over the South Atlantic. But we also have these Bs here, the letter Bs, which are referred to baixas, the low pressure systems. And they are also affecting the western side of South America. And this is lower troposphere, and we can also have the upper troposphere, of course. But I'm focusing on the lower troposphere. And these cyclones here, they are associated with cold fronts, okay, and also warm fronts. So these are the systems I'm going to talk about, and they occur mainly in these regions here that I just showed to you. So what's the difference of these systems, actually? I'm going to focus now in this explanation in the South Atlantic, which I've been working more in the past few years. So the main differences are the size, the location of where they form, as I mentioned before. So for instance, the extratropical cyclones, you can see them, the three of them you can see through satellite imagery, and the extratropical ones, they are the biggest ones. They are associated with cold fronts and warm fronts, and they have a higher diameter, while the tropical ones, they are the smallest. And we have also the subtropical ones, and sometimes you can read also in the literature, they are called as hybrid systems because they are part tropical and part extratropical. Because another characteristic of the systems are the cores, like the temperature. So extratropical cyclones, they have cold cores, so they are cold, while tropical ones, they are warm, and the subtropical ones, they are hybrid, so they have warm core in the low levels and cold core in the upper levels. Okay, so another difference is the formation, the dynamics of them. Okay, so tropical ones, they are the most recurrent in the atmosphere. They are mainly due to the gradient of temperature that we have, because we have the tropics, we have the poles, and we have this difference in temperature. So we have this gradient of temperature, and they are there to somehow balance the atmosphere, the temperature there. While tropical ones, they are mainly occurring due to the transfer of energy from the ocean to the atmosphere. And the subtropical ones, they are like a mix. So these are the three types of cyclones that we have in the the western part of South Atlantic Ocean. And what are the consequences and why it is important to study these systems? Here is just an example of an extratropical cyclone from 2016, but they are important for the hydrologic balance of the atmosphere, and not only the atmosphere, but the Earth, because they transport water in the atmosphere, right? So they transport water from the ocean, and they can distribute this water over the continents. So the rainfall occurs around the cyclone center and along the fronts, okay? And specifically in Brazil, the cold fronts can reach the north. They are in the north and northeast and east part of the cyclone center, and they can reach the continent, leading sometimes to heavy precipitation, mainly in the south region of Brazil and sometimes in the southeast. They are also important. Their monitoring is also important due to winds, because some of them are also leading to stronger winds around the cyclone center during the formation and their mature stages. So what are the consequences of this? We have some maritime agitation, we have sea surfs, we have floodings sometimes, but also they can trigger some other phenomena. As I showed to you, I will just come back a bit. We have some regions here that are characterized by squall lines. And the squall lines are mesoscale systems, and sometimes cyclones also can trigger this type of mesoscale phenomena, as also tornadoes. So this is another important thing to study cyclones and monitor them. So here I just brought some examples to you. We had once in 2004, the first denominated tropical cyclones in literature. This was called Catarina. And why was that name? Because it formed near the state of Santa Catarina that we have in Brazil. And as you can see through the imagery, there was an eye. So this is a main characteristic of a tropical cyclone. And it was actually a extratropical cyclone. And then it transitioned to a tropical one. So this is something else also that can occur in cyclones. They can start as a low, and then can like be an extratropical cyclone, and then they can transition to subtropical or even to tropical cyclones. And in this case, it achieved category 3, and it was called hurricane. Okay, but a hurricane is the same as a tropical cyclone. In the media, they call them as a hurricane of category 3 occurred, and it caused lots of damages over the state of Santa Catarina. Another example, I brought here one example of each of them and their consequences. And this study that we did in 2020 was a really interesting study. We were actually trying to attribute climate change to an extreme rainfall event that occurred. And when we were studying this event, actually, we saw that a subtropical cyclone was over the South Atlantic Ocean, and it helped to transport the moisture, and also together combined with the South Atlantic convergence zone over the southeast of Brazil. It caused extreme precipitation over southeast of Brazil, especially over Minas Gerais state. And it occurred in 27% of the climatology of precipitation occurred in only 3 days. And as you can imagine, it caused a cascade effect, occasioning floods and landslides over the region. So here are some photos of the flood occurred in many different cities and neighbors in Belo Horizonte and also in Minas Gerais. And this event caused material damage, human and economic losses. So you can see that these events also can cause this type of damages. And this study was really interesting. If you are interested in reading, you can maybe email me, or here's the title. And finally, we have also a specific type of extratropical cyclones. We also can call them explosive cyclone or bomb cyclone. I don't know if you ever heard, but they are these extratropical cyclones. They can deepen really fast in the atmosphere. Like in one day, they dip like 24 HPA, hectopascals, and they are really strong. Sometimes they are not so strong, but they occasion many different like winds, and they can also trigger squall lines. So this is one example that we have in 2020 in June, and also affected the state of Santa Catarina. And here it's a radar imagery in the right side. And you can see through this radar imagery like a squall line here. And actually, there were many at that time. There were many studies and people talking about this bomb cyclone and everything. But then, in the end, what actually caused all the damages near the coast was actually the squall line, not exactly the cyclone, but the cyclone triggered that squall line. So it's really important to monitor them over the region also. And here are some examples of what happened in Santa Catarina. So it was on the media. We were actually the civil defense of the state. They contacted us to talk about and to explain what happened. And it was really interesting because after some events that occur over that region, they started to do these seminars to talk to scientists, and it was bad, of course, because it damaged many places. But it was interesting that they were interested in to talk to us and to explore more the topic through a scientific way, right? And finally, this is one example from 2021, and here is just to show you that this upper figure here, it's the winds in 10 meters height, and the bottom one is the significant wave height. So this is the part of the warm front, okay, of the cyclone, and this is in the south part of Brazil and also Uruguay and Argentina. And you can see that in the front cold, the warm front region over the ocean is the region that is occurring the most higher wave height. And there are some studies that showed that there are specific regions for strong cyclones and where the most higher wave height occur. So there are basically 3 situations. And if you are interested also, you can check these 2 papers, the Hasha and others in 2004 and RegCM4 2020. So they talk about a specific events of cyclones and how they triggered these extreme wave heights, so causing floods and seaways near the coast and damaging the coast. Okay, so I introduced to you about cyclones and where they occur and why it's important to study them. So you can think now that it's important to know also what is going to happen in the future, right? So now I'm going just to introduce you a bit about the climate projection scenarios and regional models. And it's something that I've been working now also and was working before a bit. And how actually we see this and do this for the future. So just a small overview. We have these tools that we call as climate models. And these tools, we use them to investigate climate response under different forces, so we can predict and we can project future climate. Okay, and these models, they are resolving many things in the atmosphere, like many physical processes, and they can also mix like the atmosphere, the ocean, biogeochemical cycles, hydrology, dynamic vegetation, sea ice, and upper level atmospheric, ozone, for instance. And we have a few differences between weather predictions. Then we go to seasonal, to interannual predictions, and then we go to climate projections. So this is really interesting. We have an initial value problem. So we call this a weather prediction, weather forecast. And then we also have this slice from year to decade, and before that we have seasonal predictions, and then we have the projections, which we use these climate models, and we have forced boundary condition problems. So we have, for instance, radiation and CO2 increasing in the atmosphere, and between these models that I'm talking about, we have the global climate models or general climate models, which they are all based in equations, okay, as the weather forecast models. But we also have the regional climate models. And here I put this table just so you can have an idea about some differences on them. So the global models, as you can imagine, they resolve the globe. So they don't have like borders because, you know, the atmosphere is flowing around the globe. But the regional climate models, you can specify a specific region, a limited area to your experiment. While the global climate models, they are high computational demanding, okay? So if you go to regional climate models, you can have some reduced demanding computational from the computers. And what we have usually is that the global climate models, they have lower resolution, while the regional ones, you can have resolution 2 kilometers if you want. So why is it nice, or why it is important to use regional climate models? Because you can have less computational demanding, okay, if you have a smaller lab, or if you don't have like a supercomputer. And you can also see some details over a specific region if you want, but you still need some better boundary conditions, okay? One thing that it's interesting about regional climate models is that you can specify parameterizations. So if you know that region very well, you know that specific parameterization, like some equations, specific equations to solve some specific parameters over the region, you can just change that. While global models, you cannot do that, at least I'm not sure if you can. So if you know the region, you can go in a further higher resolution. And here I just put this image that you can see how well resolved are the, for instance, the coast. If you have like a global model, if you have like a regional model. So we have more information of many variables, atmospheric variables for a specific region, okay? So once you have your tool, you have your scenarios, which we know that we have the higher temperature now. We also include some forcings, and we have the scenarios. So when we are talking about climate projections, we are talking about scenarios. We also have to keep that in mind. And the scenarios, they differ between themselves in the concentration of basically CO2, and how this, not only CO2, you have other gases also, but you can see how the temperature will increase in these different scenarios. So this is an example of a CMIP5. CMIP means Coupled Model Intercomparison Project, and 5 is the version 5, which was the old one. And this was established by a modeling group from the World Climate Research Programming. Okay, so it's a community of scientists that supports diagnosis and validations, intercomparisons and documentations, and also data access to different climate models and also to different scenarios. Nowadays we have CMIP6, and in a few, I think next year or in 2 years, we will have already CMIP7. So we have these outputs from global models, but also interacting with different socioeconomic pathways. So the physical dynamics, it's still based on the RCP, which we call this these scenarios, which are the radiation pathways, concentration pathways. But here for CMIP6, we also include the socioeconomic pathways of people, of the humans. And so we don't know, we are always improving, okay, these types of models. And so what I'm going to show you today, actually, it's more of some results of CMIP5, because regional climate modeling needs the boundaries, as I told you, from the global models. So we are always depending on that if we are going to use the future or if we want to analyze the future. And we are now starting to do simulations from CMIP6 outputs of global models. So we are always a bit step, not ahead, but backward from the global models. But we are always trying to improve this regional and access to from the population and other political points of view, okay? So a brief introduction now. What is the CORDEX? CORDEX is the Coordinated Regional Climate Downscaling Experiment, which is also this group, international group of many different institutions that use and have this vision to advance and coordinate the science and application of regional climate downscaling through global partnership. So as you can see here, CORDEX, they have many different domains over the globe, and they are like regional climate models. So we need the boundary conditions to put in our regional models. And we have South America, we have Europe, we have many different domains. Okay, so we have the CMIP5, we have the global models, we have the CORDEX, and this is what I'm going to talk about in some results. So I introduced to you cyclones, climate projections, and CORDEX, and global and regional climate models. So now I'm going to talk about to you some results that we had of cyclones around South America in the future. So based on these cortex domains, there were some studies. This one specifically was from Michele Reboita and others in 2020. They performed this study for the Southern Hemisphere. They wanted to know how will be the projection of extratropical cyclones for the future, the winter. And they found that there will be a decrease in the frequency of cyclones in general, but positive trends in the frequency of intense cyclones over the region. So these cyclones will be stronger, they would have more precipitation associated, not only in intensity, but also especially. So here they perform this, they analyze these two specific cyclogenetic regions. So these bottom figures are showing precipitation associated with cyclones for GCMs, general climate models or global models, and RegCM. This is specifically for RegCM, which is a regional climate model. And they saw that the difference between future and present, that precipitation will increase for this region. Also for Uruguay region, which is also a cyclogenetic region. So we'll have more precipitation in the future associated with these systems, and they will be stronger. So another study are regarding the explosive cyclones that I mentioned, the bomb cyclones. And similarly, they will be more deep. The explosive cyclones in the future, they will be deeper, or which means more intense, and they also be faster. So they are also move faster and have shorter lifetime compared to the present climate. Also, the composites that we did show that there will be more precipitation associated with the systems in a warmer condition. Okay. So another study, also, this is from De Jesus and others from 2021. We were interested in the 3 cyclogenetic regions shown here in this left map. Okay. And we also, for these 3 specific regions, we saw that we made some comparisons between GCMs and RCMs, specifically RegCM4, which is a regional climate model, and how they produce these cyclones, and if they are good or not, of course, and how will be in the future. So not only to see how it will be in the future, but we need to evaluate if they are okay, if they are good for the present climate. So here is showing the present climate, this upper figure. And here in the bottom are the trends for specific regions, but also for the winds. So this left here, left plot is showing that there will be a decrease of cyclones, but they will increase in terms of intense winds. So we'll have a decrease in the number of cyclones and an increase in the wind speed, which is also in accordance with the other study from Reboita. We also have this other work about subtropical cyclones, not extratropical ones, but the subtropical ones. And again, we were interested to see if regional climate models, or specifically RegCM4, was able to reproduce the systems over the region. And we also see that there will be a decrease in the number of subtropical cyclones, and we will have some differences regarding the season that they will occur. And finally, I'm going to talk about a bit this work that we did. It was an online paper writing workshop that happened in 2020. And at this period, it's when I met Miguel, and we were really happy, and it was really fun to work together. So we had this workshop, and the idea was to use the output simulations from Cortex platform to produce papers and science. And we came up with this idea of studying cyclones in the western part of South America, because we have many different studies in the eastern part, but we don't have much of them, and we don't know much of them of how RegCM or regional climate models simulate cyclones over the region. So if you are interested, please access this nice study. We took some time to work on that. But what was the point? We wanted to see if regional climate models were able to reproduce cyclones over the region, and also different types of cyclones. So we have, as you know, you have the coastal lows, and we are also interested on that systems. So here you can see we put some examples of what we were interested. So we digged into those systems, and we wanted to explore which variables were important to that, and we try to compare Arrow 5 with RegCM4 outputs from Cortex Core. And yeah, so if you are interested, please read it, because I think I'm a bit out of time. So we did different comparisons. We also saw the composites from different variables on the atmosphere, and we saw that the RegCM4, forced by different global climate models, they differ in the number of systems over the region, and we tried to explain why. Okay, so that was something that we did. And we also separated isotropical cyclones that crossed the Andes and the ones that did not cross the Andes. And we made some statistics of how many of them represent the ones that not cross the Andes, because many of them actually, they die in the western coast, and they cannot just cross the Andes. Only the ones that passes more southern can cross. And we try to explain that, seeing the global models and seeing the outputs from regional climate models. And we try to associate with the upper level jets and the southern South Pacific high. And it was really cool. And finally, I'm going to talk about this project, Western South Atlantic Climate Experience, very quickly. So this was a project that we did together with Petrobras, which is a company from Brazil, and we got this project. And they were interested in not also in the cyclones, in the winds, but also the wave heights over the southeast of Brazil. And so the objective of this project was to evaluate extreme winds and the ocean waves in the present and future climates over the West and South Atlantic Ocean. And the idea was also to identify trends of isotropical, subtropical cyclones. So actually, we wanted to do our own simulations using RegCM4, but also WRF in the climate mode. Okay, so we used 2 scenarios for this project and 2 global models, HAJAM from England, and MPI from Germany, and of course also reanalysis, because we need to evaluate the present climate. So we evaluated the present climate and also performed these experiments for the future climate. And we did this atmospheric downscalings in RegCM4 and WRF, and we use a wave model called WaveWatch 3, also to simulate the waves. And we were interested in the extreme winds and waves associated with cyclones, and we are still in progress of analyzing this bunch of data, because it's a lot of data. And here I'm just going to show to you some results that we had for the present climate, okay, not for the future because we still didn't publish, but we will. And okay, so we have this study, and we basically checked. Okay, so we have some data sets, observational data sets from stations. We have some buoys, we have some platforms, and we divided the study in 3 steps. So we wanted to select the best data set to evaluate our simulations. And to do that, we need the observations, right? So we did this analysis of surface wind speeds and significant wave height from reanalysis, and also satellites, because we are also interested to see how satellite perform the winds over the region. And we had, of course, the buoys and platforms to compare that. The second step was to check the bias of our simulations, because we did the simulations with RegCM and also with WRF. And we did that by analyzing the annual and seasonal climatologies of the mean and extreme wind speeds. And the third step was to check the waves. So we also wanted to see how the waves were in the reanalysis, but also in the downscaling, in the simulations forced by these winds from RegCM4 and from WRF. And to do the first step, we took some platforms, some data set platform from the platforms from Petrobras they provided to us, and also some buoys that we have near the coast. And we compared with satellite and with some reanalysis like CFSR, R5, Air Interim, and also MERA. And we saw that they are quite similar between each other to perform the winds over the region. But we saw that R5 is good to represent the 6-hourly wind speed, while CFSR and CCMP, which is this satellite data set, is good for the extremes. And we also checked the extremes here. So these are the buoys and the platforms, and we saw the same in general. So we decided to use CCMP, which is this satellite data set, combined with observations, and they also use a model to combine everything. So we use the CCMP data set. And for the significant wave height, we saw that we used NSAP and WaveRes, which are kind of a reanalysis, and they both represent the mean and extreme significant wave height for the region. But CCMP and WaveRes, in this case, the WaveRes was the one that best represented the extremes. Okay, so we selected WaveRes for the waves and CCMP for the winds, and because they were the best representative. And if you are interested, you can go to the paper. We explain which parameterization we used and also the resolution, and these are the domains that we use. We wanted to use domains similar to the Cortex domains, because we still are going to put this data that we produce in their platform. So if you were interested in the future, you can also analyze this data for your region, for instance. So we checked how we did some description of the annual mean wind speed and also the extremes for the region. We did also some seasonal analysis, so it's very well described in the paper. But we saw that RegCM4 and WRF, they have opposite biases. So they represent the winds differently over the South Atlantic. While WRF has a negative bias, RegCM4 has a positive bias. And this is reflected in the significant wave height. So when we use the winds forced, we use the winds from this regional downscaling, we see this output also in the wave model, as you can see here in the bottom part of these figures. So these are RegCM, for instance, and when it's blue, you can see it's WRF. I don't know if you can read it, it's really small here, but the blue bias is from WRF. And we explain that, and we come up with some ideas. And a second paper that we did with that is that, okay, so we have this bias from RegCM and from MORPH. How can we assure something? How can we correct that? So we have also this paper, Da Silva and others from 2022, which it's a technique to adjust these extreme winds to perform the future projections, and also to perform the present climate projections. To represent this present climate wave and winds over the region. So it's also really interesting because it's a technique of bias correction, and we are still exploring this for some other results for the future. So that's, I know it was a lot of information, but I hope you find it interested, and if you have any questions, you can email me, and yeah, I will be really happy to answer you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for your very exciting presentation.
Okay.
You have presented us very interesting result, and we are in the water resources community most familiar with precipitation and temperature projections. So looking these systems and the physics is a very interesting issue. Here we have a couple of questions. For instance, talking about Chile or this part of the South America, most of the precipitation comes in where most of the population lives from cyclones. So what are the expectative from this part of the Andes regarding the
That's a good question. We mainly in this results that I showed you, we mainly studied cyclones over South Atlantic and the future projections of it. But as I showed you for I think it was the Reboita and others paper. I think this one actually maybe you can find there, because here here are the cyclogenesis, okay, for every interim, and here in the bottom part you see the GCMs and the RCMs. So you have the future minus the present, and you can see that there will be a decrease in this region, decrease of cyclones affecting this region using a regional climate model. But in GCMs, you can see this, I don't know if you see my mouse, but in this, you do. Okay, so this brownish color means like increase. So I would say that for the 30 south degrees, you have like maybe more coastal lows, I would say, which is not, I know that is not associated with precipitation for you, but this study, they were interested in extratropical cyclones. So as I understood, there will be more extratropical cyclones migrating maybe to the north over this region. But we did not perform a study over the Western South America, and that would be something interesting to do. If you want to use these data sets I was talking about, so maybe it will be something nice to analyze cyclones over that region. But as we did in our study, we saw that there are some differences, right, between when we use a regional climate model, because we don't have the whole region of the South Pacific, and we can see only cyclones affecting the western part. So maybe if you study the whole South Pacific and how cyclones like move from the middle of South Pacific affecting the western South America, maybe it would be something better to do for this topic.
Thank you, Natalia. Another question is regarding, you show that regional models have biases in representing cyclogenetic activity. So it's more like a philosophical question. How reliable are the projections of this model if you evidenced such biases in the original models?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We also try to discuss that in the paper, because when you have a regional climate model, you have the boundaries and you have a limited area, of course. One thing that you could do, for instance, is to go more to the south with your boundary if you are using a regional climate model, and have a wider region to do that. But we saw that using RegCM, we have a better performance of cyclones forming in this more subtropical part of the domain. So if on one hand you have some problems in the boundaries, in the southern boundaries, you have an added value in the northern boundaries. So you always have this, you know, with regional climate models. You have maybe you would have to use more models to check the uncertainties. That's why we use not only one simulation to evaluate models, to evaluate regional climate models. We use more than one because we know that it's not sure what we are looking at. So one thing that you could do is to use different climate models or regional climate models to evaluate the uncertainties. There are some statistics to do that. Or you can use like one model and use different boundary conditions for that, which was what we did here, for instance, in this work. We use 4 different boundary conditions for this. So this is actually an ensemble. It's not one model. And also for the GCMs here, we have an ensemble of GCMs. So we always need to discuss that. We always have problems, even with the GCMs. So we need to perform some statistics to check the uncertainties.
Perfect, Natalia. So there is any additional questions from the audience at Zoom or the YouTube channel?
I have a question.
Okay.
But it's maybe from my ignorance. So you just said that there may be some biases and that can be, I don't know, improved by increasing the area. But are there any challenges in the models itself? I mean, some parametrizations or the spatial resolution that simulate that, I don't know, that you use to simulate this area. Maybe there are some equations that are not working properly. I don't know. I mean, is it just the area or anything else?
Okay. So these results that I showed are mainly part of the Cordex. So Cordex, they have these specific domains that they try to keep it, to make the analysis more robust. Like if you are working in Chile and I'm working in Brazil or in Prague, I will have the same domain because it will be comparable. Okay. But depends on what type of atmospheric systems you're looking at. If you are looking for over the continent, what you usually do, if you want to check the hydrological cycle, for instance, you do some experiments before you are going to perform these long-term simulations. So, for instance, for this project that I showed to you, the Western Climate South Atlantic Climate Experiment, we did some sensitivity tests to see if how would be this specific parametrization to reproduce winds and extreme winds over the ocean, because that was our interest. So you can always modify the parametrizations in the models and try to find the best fit for your purpose, let's say. But of course, there are some main parametrizations used worldwide, and in literature, you can find specific ones for precipitation over the continent, for instance. But that's one nice thing that we have on regional climate models. We can always try to change the parameterizations and see what best fits for that specific thing that we want to analyze. So I don't know if I answered your question, but there are many things that you can change when you're doing simulation.
Yeah, thank you so much. And one final question. When you compare these simulations with a reference data set, is that always reanalysis, or do you have more, I don't know, data sets like satellites or anything else?
Yeah, so for this paper that I mentioned here, the Western South Atlantic Climate Experiment, this is the table of the data sets we used. So we used 4 different reanalyses, and we used the satellite data, which is called CCMP. And we did these Taylor diagrams and also checked the PDFs for the extreme winds. And we analyzed, okay, so which one is the best for this data, observational data that we have, because we were interested in over the ocean and near the coast. So we wanted to analyze this specific region, and we saw that the satellite data was the best to reproduce not the mean wind speed, but also the extremes over this region. So why we usually reanalysis, right? We usually use reanalysis because of the grid points that we have more information. So, but before doing that, we were okay. So ARO5, is the ARO5 the best? Or if it's CFSR, or maybe the satellite data that we have now. So that's why we tested that. And we saw that the satellite data was the best for the winds.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for your answers. I'm not sure because Miguel, I think you have to leave, or do you have more minutes?
No, I can stay a little longer.
Okay.
We have a question in YouTube from the meteorologist Diego Campos. He asked if there is a verification on how models see the temperature gradients or jet stream intensity and location.
If there is some studies on that.
Yes, how can you verify the temperature gradients or jet streams and the location?
Yeah. There are some studies. You can maybe Diego, you can check this paper that I mentioned. I think we put some reference here, right, Miguel, about that. So in this specific work that we did, we actually tried to explain through jet streams. I didn't put the figure here, but we actually analyzed the jet streams. And of course, we were analyzing in the RegCM4, but there are also studies talking about how the jet streams will be in future and how the temperature will be in future, mainly in global models, okay? Because you have more data sets on that, I would say. And if you go to this paper here, which are extratropical cyclones in general, we also analyze the jet streams, okay? So it's De Jesus and others. And we cited in the introduction, we did some introduction on global models. And if you are interested, you can see in general, the global model says that we have jet streams like more to the south, more to the pole, because we have more higher temperature and the tropics will kind of expand. So that is the trend that is known from some studies on global models. But I don't know by heart now the publications, but in this paper, I'm sure that we mentioned that. The Jesus and others. If you are interested, Diego, you can send me an email. I can give you the reference.
Thank you, Natalia and Diego, for the question. I think, Natalia, we are done. So I just want to thank you again for your very interesting and exciting presentation. And Nicolas, now you can say goodbye to the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia, for your presentation. I really enjoyed. Thanks, Miguel, for joining the webinar today. And I would like to remind the audience that our next seminar is scheduled for May 24th. The speaker will be Tomás Trehuela, and the title of his seminar is Shear-Driven Segregation in Granular Flows, a Coupled-Stokes Problem. Okay, so I invite you to join our next seminar. And that's it. Thanks again, Natalia. Thanks, Miguel. Thanks, Karina. You are always with us. And have a good night for you, Natalia. And good afternoon for all the audience.